On today's episode, we're going to talk about trends of 2023. And Noelle, I'm assuming we're not talking about clothing.
No, we're not. And I think the most obvious trend is that this is the first video recording that we have of our
Oh,
podcast.
yeah. Which is, I don't know about for you, but for me, video. I mean, I'm always playing with my phone, and the video's always on. So this is just another day for John Kim. But for Noelle, this might be a little bit. You're seeing her face, so it might be a little bit awkward. It might be a little bit scary. I don't know.
I mean, awkward and scary are two words that flow through my life on a
Hmm.
regular basis.
Yeah, I
But
mean, you're definitely a lot more into used to video now these days than you
yeah,
were, years ago.
absolutely, absolutely. But it's a fun chapter. I'm excited for this chapter to hang with people in a different way and get into all things life coaching. So, thanks for being my partner in all this.
Yeah, and thanks for setting the example of doing things that are a little uncomfortable. So I think that's great. Speaking of clothes and trends, the '90s are coming back strong, and I feel like because '90s is high school and college for me.
Yeah.
It's been like what is it? Is it 30 years since the '90s?
Oh my God.
Yeah. And I feel like it was just, maybe 15 years ago, 10 years ago, high school, stonewashed jeans and all these things. And now '90s is really like they've become like the cars in the '90s are vintage now. And it's just blowing my mind how fast time is going and how old, I feel.
I
Anyway.
know. I mean, I loved the '90s musically, first of
Yeah.
all. I think that
Yeah.
was like some golden years. And what I'm here for stonewashed jeans. I think that we should get matching jeans and rock them together.
All right. Well, we will embrace all the retro that's coming back as we talk about the trends of 23.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and let's talk about trends because there are so many trends in wellness that are coming forward right now. And so when I looked at the data, the research, and what I do, so folks know, is I go through all of the industry reports in wellness. There are some huge, heavy hitting publications. The Global Wellness Summit, Mind Body Green, Well and Good is a think tank out of the UK, and I read all of the data on the market trends, and then I pull out all of the trends that coaches need to be aware of. And I selected just a couple this year to get folks oriented to the places where we're really seeing the major shifts and the heavy hitting punches, so that if folks are thinking about their niche or changing direction or developing their business in the new year, they will have everything that they need to go. So let's get into it.
Yeah.
The first piece, and I'm so curious about your take on this, is that most folks are starting to return to in real life fitness experiences.
Yeah. I know
What
from well, I was gonna say, I know for me, that was a game changer. I used to work out by myself most of my life, and so, when I found functional fitness and classes and all that, and there was that explosion about 10 years ago, yoga, Pilates, all these classes, man, that was exciting because I got to leave the house, engage with someone, engage with people socially, be a part of a community, and then also get my workout on. It seems like that's kind of, coming back.
it is, and the reason that it went away was the pandemic.
Mhm.
Thinking back to that period, I know you and I both got rowing machines.
Yep.
We both started running. It only lasted like literally 10 minutes for me, but
Yeah,
but I
12,
think
12 for me.
you stuck with it a little bit longer. And, I think what we're seeing right now is many of these trends are a boomerang from the pandemic experience of folks centering on, well, what's really important to me right now. And I think that with this returning to in real life fitness,
Mhm.
we're seeing a renewed commitment to health, to maintaining one's body,
Mhm.
and people have been really under prioritizing their health. And so, what we see, especially from the space of coaching and from the perspective of coaching, is that it's more helpful to do things in partnership with others than it is to do them on your own.
Mm, yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that's true. Where are some of the places in the world of fitness that you see coaches plugging in?
Mindset is a big one. I think using fitness as a way into conversations. I believe that a lot of the fears, a lot of challenges we have with movement and stuff inside a classroom ripples outward. So, kind of
Mhm.
using fitness as a door into other conversations. And I think a lot of people are attracted to that because it doesn't feel so clinical,
Yeah.
So that feels more casual and it feels tangible. So I see a lot of that happening.
Absolutely. One of the areas where I see the juxtaposition of coaching and fitness taking place is folks who have gone through our Lumia program who are top-notch trainers.
Mm.
And I've heard a lot of people describe the way that going through coach training has actually changed the way that they train people
Oh,
in
interesting.
letting the client kind of lead into where their fitness level is and where their fitness fears are. That the trainers are looking at this from a coaching perspective and saying, well, if we really let the client lead, that client is going to tell me where their mental fear threshold is and then where their actual baseline is. And I'll let them start with where their fear level is, even if they're capable of, for example, doing a box jump. They might
Mhm.
be afraid of it. So I'm going to meet them exactly where they're at and orient the fitness program to actually break through the fear cycle versus the fitness level, which I thought was a really cool approach.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more customization in fitness today. I like that instead of just telling people what to do, which is a lot of old school fitness.
It is. It
Yeah.
is. And so that combination of the client coach relationship, meeting in person, going back into person is I think where we're really seeing the way that coaching is changing the fitness industry. And, cheers and hats off to all of our Lumia coaches who are out there engaging people in this way. The outcome is that when people make choices about what they're going to do versus being told what to do, they're more likely to stick with
Of
whatever it
course.
is that
Right.
they're doing. All right. Next up, we have a trend that is near and dear to my heart because before Lumia, before coaching, I was in my PhD in human sexuality and I was
Mhm.
studying to become a sex therapist.
Right.
And the big trend that we're seeing right now is the growth of sexual wellness as something that consumers are clamoring for. What's been your experience with this space?
Yeah, I definitely feel that. Just all around exploration, new definitions of sex and intimacy.
Hmm.
Also, a lot of men realizing how pornography and locker rooms have created their definitions and now trying to shed some of that, create something new. There's definitely, I think, a shakeup and but it's very empowering, a shakeup and rediscovery, I think, of sex and intimacy.
Absolutely. And I think this is another area too where we're seeing a massive boomerang from the pandemic.
Yeah.
So, sexual wellness, sexual health, people talking about how they want to have sex, who they want to have sex with, how they want to experience relationships in traditional ways or non traditional ways has always been something that's pretty taboo and
Hmm.
something that
Hmm.
people have had to discover on their own by themselves in secrecy, maybe in random chat rooms.
Right.
And what happened as an outcome of the pandemic is that very broadly, people are no longer willing to compromise things that are deeply important to them
Hmm.
in terms of their personal well-being and their life experiences. And I think for the first time in our history, we're starting to see this collective push towards pleasure and saying, you know
Yeah.
what, experiencing pleasure, experiencing sex, love, joy, relationship is part the way that well-being functions. And this is a huge and rapidly expanding niche for coaches because of how new it is.
Mhm.
because so many people are scared of sexuality. So many people want to experience new and different things, but have no idea where to begin, no idea how to go about connecting even to themselves in this arena, let alone connecting with others. And that's where having a coach on hand to really walk you through the experience of, well, how do I go out and find a partner or a community or a new experience for myself?
Yeah, or even if you're in a relationship, how do I express to my partner that I want something different, or I want to be touched in a different way? And I think a lot of people have been having sex for the other person, or
Hmm.
giving, or the giant shoulds, instead of it being more of a shared experience, and then finally asking, what do I want, what makes me feel good, and exploring all of that. So yeah.
Oh, yeah. And there's such diversity in the way that coaches practice in this space. In my own practice, one of I do colonized mind work in my own practice. And an area that people come to me for is non traditional relationships and non monogamy. And that is something that I've seen an uptick in requests for non monogamy specifically in my own private practice. And then looking out at our Lumia coaches, Rena has been focusing on female sexual pleasure, and she's
Yeah.
also seeing an uptick in non monogamy. One of our coaches, Dawn Davis, has been focusing on kink and BDSM. She's seeing an explosion in her practice. We have Maria Two Straps, who
Yeah.
Maria has had a wild ride. She's in LA. She works on film sets as an intimacy coordinator. And when she jump started her private practice, she actually will go into the bedroom with couples to like help them understand how to explore toys and set everything up in a really safe way. And to your point about men, one of the crazy things that Maria started experiencing as a kinky queer Asian coach practitioner is that her main client audience
Is
is
men.
heterosexual men.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you make
Yeah.
of that?
I think it's awesome. I know her. Obviously, I know Rena as well, and she is running groups right now, and it's basically um, dating questions that men have answered by a lesbian, and so just switching it up and giving men a, something through a different lens, I think,
Hmm.
is really refreshing and courageous and awesome. Also, she shows up very who she is, you know. So yeah, I think she's great.
And that's one of the keys to coaching writ large is showing up, as you
Yeah.
are,
Yeah.
as you are with someone. I had a new client session last week, and we worked on a coming out letter to her parents. And I sat there and just cried right along with my client because it was so deep and it was so poignant, and it was such a touching experience that I got to share with somebody so vulnerably. and and that's who I am, crying.
Yeah.
I will feel things right alongside of people. And
Yeah.
so if this is an area that you're interested in, there's so much room for growth. I'm also thinking of Chris Sherry, who's in Canada. He does sexual surrogacy work, which is another way that coaches can really have a ton of impact in this arena, and it's legal in the state of California. So sexual surrogacy work is a combination of coaching and touch to help people who are trauma survivors get comfortable with touched, being held, and it's a absolutely beautiful way to
Wow.
work. So if this is something that you're interested in, think about it, get into it, get curious about it. And it's worth noting that the trend of sexual well being broke through the wellness media barrier and actually showed up last week in The Economist.
Wow.
I couldn't believe it because I'm dorky. I read The Economist and I was like, oh my God, they're talking about sexual wellness. Like, wow, like this really moved out of the mind body green and wellness space into economics because it's such a
Yeah.
big trend right now.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where all of that goes, and how it continues to grow, and also how it impacts, coaching, what we do
Me
with that.
too.
So, yeah.
Me too. And one of the things that I think I'm the most curious about with the sexual wellness piece is it seems to be coming at a time when there's been an uptick in hate speech and violence towards folks of diverse sexual identity. We're seeing a lot of, protests of drag shows right now.
Yeah.
And there was that horrible shooting in Colorado Springs, and there's been anti-trans legislation across the board. And so I think that we're starting to see this fissure in society where the old way is clamping down harder, but what the consumer base is saying, what the market is saying is we want sex. We
Yeah.
want it now, and we want to explore all of the different ways where it's possible for us. And to me, that's really exciting because, ultimately the market will command the direction of society. So let's
Yeah,
go,
absolutely.
everyone.
And
Let's
and
push
also,
this rock up the hill.
whenever there's ever a shakeup in general, there's always gonna be pushback, and so
Yeah.
part of that is seeing that, yeah.
Yeah. Next is the arena of mental fitness. What does that mean to you?
Mhm. Oh, man, the word that comes to my mind is burpees. No, mental fitness, our bodies, can go a lot further than we think, and so, training our minds through, physical movement to stretch, or what I call, stretch the white zone. When I do fitness, I try to get to that space where, not where I'm like, tapping out, but where it's very difficult, as fast as I can, and I try to stay there as long as I can. So, uh, that's one thing I do, but that's a form of mental fitness.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, mental fitness is essentially mental health, mental well-being, and paying attention to the fact that our brains and the way that we experience our internal existence is just as important, if not more important, than making sure that our physical external bodies are healthy and sound. And so, in
Yeah.
the same way that we're seeing this return to in real life fitness, we're seeing a trend that's really pushing towards taking care of our brains and our emotions and our hearts and our souls. There was a really interesting pull quote that came out of Wondermind, which is
Mhm.
a platform that's really seeking to destigmatize mental health
Yeah, I'm on
and
the I'm on the advisory board for Wondermind.
cool. I asked you if you were part of this and you said no, I never heard of them.
Uh, because when Noelle sends you something that asks a question, there's like a gazillion links. I have no idea what she's talking about. So, I was like, "No, I don't think so." But, yes, I am a part of it. It's, Se Selena Gomez's, platform, mental health.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the head of content for Wondermind said
Mm.
that people often think about mental health as something that you focus on only when you're in crisis rather than as a crucial part of how you show up in the world. So taking care of your mental health doesn't have to be expensive, inaccessible, and time consuming.
Yeah.
And this is one of the areas where we're seeing an uptick in opportunities for coaches because coaching sits on the bookends of crisis.
Mhm.
And a lot of people are starting to work with coaches in terms of mindfulness and meditation, performance at work, stress reduction, burnout coaching is huge. All of this
Yeah.
plays into mental fitness, mental well being. What are some areas that you see that coaches are really getting in there with people in pushing this trend?
I was gonna say, the the word that comes to my mind is, stigma, and trying to,
Mm,
erase stigma. It's one of the things that Wondermind is doing, that mental health or if you think different, or if you struggle with different things and all of that, that it's okay and it shouldn't be hidden, or lined with shame. So there's that movement happening as well. I think the new generation, because our parents, we grew up with our parents basically thinking if we went to therapy we're crazy, to now the new generation putting mental wellness at the top, three, or up there with success and education and all the things that you know that we
Are
put a lot
important
of
in
weight
life.
on. Yeah.
I know people who put that in their dating profiles. Like, if you're not in
Mm.
therapy, I don't want to date you.
Oh yeah, yeah. Which is great because now we're putting therapy, mental wellness, coaching, all of it on stage, front and center, shining the spotlight on it, embracing it, and saying, "This is important to us."
Absolutely. And I
Yeah,
think implicit in here too, thinking about, what's next, the future, it's all about diversity.
yeah,
I know that neurodiversity is a huge piece
yeah. That's
of
new and big right now. I think
it
neurodiversity.
is.
Yeah.
And that's in this mental fitness
Hmm.
trend. If you're ADHD, having an ADHD coach to help
Yeah.
you understand your brain through the really specific lens that you might happen to see through, and helps you really make sense of your world. Sober coaching, dealing with substances, that's a huge part of mental fitness.
Hmm.
And it goes on and on and on and on. So, every aspect of diversity that people might experience, when you drill down into that as a coach and you're flying your flag around, the more specific you can get, the better job you'll do at attracting your people
Hmm.
to it. I think breakups are in here too. Overcoming breakups. I think your book Single on Purpose, that would totally fall into mental
Trending.
fitness.
Oh,
Yeah.
mental fitness. Yeah, yeah. I think singlehood has always, I think up until recently, it's been, that means you're defective, you're less than. Why are you single? What's wrong with you? I
Mhm.
have a friend. I need to solve this problem. And I think people who are single now are finally saying, you know what? I'm actually good, and we can smash the ticking clock, and I can be single for a while. Doesn't mean that I want to be single forever, but really kind of giving singlehood a cape and empowering that, I think is also happening.
And a lot of people are single on purpose forever too. And so
Yeah,
destigmatizing that as a lifestyle choice.
yeah, yeah.
I think this too flows into the feminist space of body
Hmm.
acceptance,
Hmm.
and acceptance around different aspects and versions of womanhood in general is a
Yeah.
huge part of this.
Not everyone wants the picket fence with the 2.2 kids, and like that's a blueprint that's been passed down, and so yeah, customization.
Customization, that's what it's all about. Another piece that's coming through that I got really excited about seeing, because it so specifically ties into the work that so many of our Lumia coaches are doing, is it's a two-parter. It's wellness travel directed at experiencing psychic services.
Mm,
And this trend is backed by big money, big money. So we're seeing, like, the Arizona Biltmore now has Reiki sessions
right.
alongside of your facials. And we've also seen this coming from, pretty much every big name spa out there has all sorts of different things that you can do in alignment with that. We're seeing astrology readings taking
Yeah.
place at different spas and wellness retreats. There are so many different targeted vacation packages. There are now retrograde escapes being
Hmm.
marketed. And this trend, at least what the literature is saying, at least what all of the data is saying is that this trend is coming once again from a backlash from the pandemic, that people have lost trust in traditional systems.
Yeah.
So that's like church, school, government,
Hmm.
and let's go astrology.
I want to
Let's,
put my faith in the stars instead of, yeah. But
yeah.
also psychedelics,
Mhm.
obviously huge.
Yeah, it's huge. And that all ties in to experiencing different aspects of spirituality, and maybe even a return to a state of nature. Just even thinking about like looking up at the stars, that's probably something that we can all say ties us to the core of our common humanity. Since the dawn of civilization, we've looked at the stars and wondered, what the fuck we're doing here.
Mhm.
And I see this happening with our coaches out as well. There are so many of our coaches who do this work, who lead retreats, who take
Yeah.
people out into nature, who read tarot, who do birth chart readings. Catherine Schwartz in Tennessee, she combines Reiki, healing, coaching, and nature walks,
Mm,
helping people reintegrate with nature. I know Chris Clark in Oregon combines tarot and coaching.
mhm.
Millie, astro
Yeah.
consciousness in LA, she does her birth chart readings and she does retreats, mindfulness meditations with Barb. And I know I'm missing people, but it's a fantastic field. You and I have both given these services as gifts to each other over the years.
Right, right. It's not woo anymore. It's just becoming kind of mainstream common language, astrology
Absolutely.
and readings. Yeah.
Something that knocked my socks off when I was doing research to have this conversation was that Well and Good, which is a wellness based think tank out of the UK, found and quoted an ICF certified travel coach. And I get so excited every time I see the words ICF and coach
Sure.
in print in big
Yeah.
publications, because I'm like, oh my gosh, this is heralding, everything that we've been talking about, the importance of certification, the credentialing, the letters after your name, seeing coaching legitimized in this way in print. And the person who was interviewed, her name is Camila Castro,
Mm.
and she calls herself a mindful travel coach. And
Mm.
she's been seeing people seeking out these kind of services as a way to find spiritual grounding. And more and more travelers out there are wanting to go away, leave their everyday lives, tap into something new, and have these experiences. And so, if you're thinking about what you can do differently as a coach in 2023, this might be a really cool avenue to explore. And this might be a really cool avenue to explore in terms of partnerships.
Mhm.
John, I know you've been part of retreats in the past.
Yeah.
What's that experience like as a coach? What was it like for you to be a part of that?
For me, it was great because I spend most of my days in the garage slash studio or by myself writing or making videos. So to go on a retreat and help other people in person in a group setting and also in a location that can be beach, jungle, somewhere really cool. It's amazing. I mean, I know people who they don't want a private practice. They just want to run retreats because
Yeah.
they get so much from it. So yeah, retreats are huge now. I mean, they've been growing, but now there's retreats everywhere you go, and coaches are running them and putting them together, and you could get hired to be a part of a retreat, or you could run your own. So
Yeah. And I think too where I see so many partnerships form within our Lumia community
hmm.
is people have such awesome collections of
Yeah.
services. So we might have a mindset coach paired with somebody who does readings, paired with somebody who does mindfulness or yoga, paired with somebody who does improv, and throw it all
Mhm.
together in a retreat, and the guests get such a wonderful
Yeah.
experience. So we're
Yeah.
starting to see so many of those partnerships bubble up within our organization. I have one more trend for us, and it's a big one. And I think that this is another one that I'm going to personally predict alongside sexual wellness. These are going to be the big booms coming in 2023. And this is community based well being centers.
Yeah.
This is another area where there's really big money
Both on and
behind.
offline,
But no,
or in person?
this is well, I think Lumia is a really fantastic example of a community-based online experience.
Sure.
And we did this, long before the pandemic made virtual communities a thing, and long before this was ever a need, simply because coaching is such a new field that we needed to band together as a community in order to cross pollinate with resources and
Mhm.
motivation. And it's been super effective. But the specific trend that we're seeing right now, and the reason I wanted to highlight this for our listeners and for our coaches, is because this is where jobs are forming. This is a huge market that money is just flowing into right now. And there's a reason behind it. There's an epidemic of loneliness coming out of the pandemic. The statistics are really staggering. 36% of all Americans, 61% of young adults, 61% of young adults feel
Mhm.
serious loneliness.
Yeah.
This is a study that came out of Harvard. And many folks, 43%, say it's due to the pandemic. And this is the most heartbreaking statistic. Half of young adults who said that they're lonely said that in their recent memory, no one had taken more than just a few minutes to ask how they're doing in a way that made them feel like the person actually cared about them.
Mhm.
So, what do we do with this, right? We know that society is fragmented. We know that the traditional community, alongside those white picket fences that we were conditioned to want and to hold up as like this is the way of life in America, especially, have kind of gone away. People don't know their neighbors. They don't talk to a lot of people. A lot of people work from home. They stay in their apartments. And so society is starting to look for ways to rebuild community around different aspects of wellness, to create gathering spots where the element of care, knowing your story, knowing what you're up to, is actually part and parcel of the experience of coming in. I started working on a project, working with a friend, just helping out here and there. There's a gym that's being built in Philadelphia where the story of all of the people who go to the gym is right smack in the middle of the group fitness experience. So that's actually
Mm.
combining in real life with community-based wellness. And this is, oh, by the way, one of our Lumia coaches who took that notion of care and bridged it right into this gym. And the fellow who's the investor is from France. And he said,
Mm.
living in the US, I miss the community that I used to have in France. And he said he sees so many people, young people, working from home with no anchor of community, that they want to kind of like recreate that experience.
Mhm.
And that's just one example. There are so many. There's a place, it's called The Well, and they have locations in New York, Connecticut, and Costa Rica. And
Wow.
they offer beauty treatments, but they also offer classes and access to wellness experts. So if you're a coach and you're listening right now and you're thinking, wow, like this sounds like a place I'd like to work, The Well has locations in New York, Connecticut, and Costa Rica. There's another one in New York called Sage and Sound. They have facials, acupuncture, they have a speaker series, and they have daily classes, everything from poetry to meditation. And coaching services are implicit, in all of this work, really bridging that gap, because one of the things that coaching teaches you how to do as a practitioner is how to care about someone,
Yeah.
how to ask those questions, how to build trust and safety, how to be intimate. And so it's a skill set that folks who are certified and credentialed have a serious competitive edge in the market of wellness practitioners to move into spaces like this. Have you seen any popping up in LA?
No, I'm sure they're here, but you know what I've seen is online. I've seen the explosion of micro communities. So
Mm,
I think because it's not about like I think how many followers you have now. It's more about taking the following that you do have and really building trust. I know there's a platform I use called Circle. I think they just raised 35 million,
wow.
and people are getting kind of sick of social media algorithms and all that. And there's a lot of tech companies building platforms where you could build your own micro community. And so, yeah, it's happening online, offline. And, the common thread between all these trends is the fact that there's evolution with wellness in general, and then
Mm.
with that comes opportunity to coach and be coached, as part of your life is just a normal thing. It's not a niche anymore. It's just the way we live.
It is. It's the way we live, and that care piece, I think, is in the center of all of it. Whether it's sexual well-being or in real life fitness or care centers, or just the way that we show up as
Yeah,
coaches day in and day out. So, thank you for joining me for this
yeah,
conversation and
yeah,
being on camera today. I'm excited to do it a lot more as we truck forward into the new year. And if this is exciting to you, if you're excited about all of the things that we're talking about, or even any of the Lumia coaches that we've mentioned, come on in. Our community is so awesome, and this is where we have conversations like this all the time, day in and day out, getting into the trends, getting into the opportunities, and helping each other explore the world as it's being built.
yeah. If you're interested in coaching, you shouldn't do it alone. And
No.
here at Lumia, we all kind of hold hands, and it's a journey that we all do together. So the water's warm.
The water is warm. All right, my friend. I'll see you next time.